This morning we are privileged to have with us Will and Amber Deeds, who are going to be sharing with us about their mission that they're a part of in Guatemala. And this is our Missions in Bloom month, and so we've been talking about different missions that our congregation supports for the month of August. And normally with our Missions in Bloom, we have one mission speaker that we have come and share about their ministry. And so this morning is going to be that day that we hear about from one of the missionaries we support personally. Will and Amber are from the Peru area. They were high school sweethearts. They went to Asbury University and each graduated from there. Following that, Will has been in various ministry positions in youth ministry, leading worship, and also as the lead pastor at some different churches. They've been in Guatemala for 3 years. I believe that was from about 2012 or 13 until 2015. Then they've been back in the States and have served United Methodist churches in Nebraska and also in Indiana. And so now they're feeling a call to go back to Guatemala, and so they're going to be sharing more with us about that their story and their call today. So in preparation for them coming and sharing, I want to share with you from Psalm chapter 68, verses 4 and 5. Sing to God, sing in praise of his name. Extol him who rides on the clouds. Rejoice before him. His name is the Lord. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows is God in his holy dwelling. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, at this time, I want to invite Amber to come and share with us.
Good morning. I'm Amber. Will's my husband, and we have 4 kids up here, Abra, Ezra, Salem, and Simeon, running age from 3 to 13. And I'm going to share with you briefly about our work in Guatemala. And let's start with talking about, does anyone know where Guatemala is located? Anybody know their geography? A few of you do. If you wanted to drive through Mexico, you would bump right into Guatemala at the tip of it. And it's known for its Mayan culture. They have preserved for hundreds of years their Mayan culture and their beliefs, their food customs. 22 Mayan languages are still spoken. And the women, as you see in the photos, still are hand weaving their clothing. There's a sample of it out in the foyer. Is that what you call it, the foyer? You know what I mean, that area out there, if you want to take a look afterwards. Our work is in the highlands of Guatemala, which is the mountainous region with lots of volcanoes, and we're centered around Lake Atitlan, which some consider to be the most beautiful lake in the world. Our ministry is called La Casa de la Paz. Is any Spanish speakers here? Anyone know what that means? House of Peace, yeah. How many here feel it's important to have a peaceful home? Is that something that's important to you? We all value that, don't we? If something's not peaceful in our home, we're trying to fix it and do anything we can to make it feel more peaceful. Well, our families in Guatemala face a lot of difficulties in their homes, so it tends to not be very peaceful. They're facing situations like severe poverty, chronic malnutrition, especially in children, lack of education because of having to quit school and a lot of times elementary so that they can work for their families. And also little or no access to health care. Some out in villages have never seen a doctor before or been able to get there. And so those situations, you probably would agree, are very stressful. And when you have no help from government or family members because they're in the same situation as you, there's really no way out for them. And so that grinding weight upon them tends to put a lot of stress on the father figure, the husband of the family. And just as many of us, if we're stressed about something, we often turn to something to try to ease that pain. Hopefully, we're turning to Christ, but oftentimes we distract ourselves with something, maybe turning on the TV or eating a bunch of junk food or scrolling through our phones. And in Guatemala, a lot of men tend to turn to alcohol. And unfortunately, it very often leads to alcoholism. and they just can't stop. And with that, there becomes a lot of abuse of the wife and children. It's the norm in Guatemala. It's the expected. And eventually, abandonment of the family often happens because either they've passed away from alcoholism or they've taken to the streets and just can't function anymore. So the women and children are left on their own. So our organization, La Casa de la Paz, began organically as a response to that need. We began in 2012 with our first House of Peace group meeting in Panajachel. And our groups are a way to provide a safe place for women and children to come and receive support, find out they're not alone, and begin to heal from what they've experienced. We use a program called, based off of Celebrate Recovery. Has anyone heard of Celebrate Recovery? It's a 12-step program, and each month is a different step, and you work through this, and we use this as a way to help. It's not just for alcoholism, it's for all sorts of trauma that you may have experienced. And we use this as a way for the women to be discipled and learn who they are in Christ and be able to move forward and find out that there's hope for them. There's a future for them. And so this need was so great in Guatemala that quickly we began to grow after starting, and women began to tell their friends from other communities, and then they said, we need this in our community, and they began to join together and start these communities. We now are working in over 10 communities around Lake Atitlan and serving over 200 families, and it's increasing each month now. It's rapidly increasing. And we have our groups led by 2 women who themselves have experienced abuse and abandonment and are now leading the groups. Their names are Gloria and Mercedes. You can see them on either side of me. Yes, you may be noticing that they are short, and I'm short. So a lot of women in Guatemala are short. So I fit in there, finally. And they lead our groups, but we also work with 2 rehabilitation centers, one for men and one for women. And we work with the rehab centers so that in some cases, we're able to reunite families. And that's the ultimate goal, to seek healing and recovery for families through Christ. Some of our goals for the future are to begin discipling young men so that cycle can be stopped. How many of you know that's a cycle that can be passed down through generations? So we want to stop that cycle and begin the cycle of passing down Christ through the generations, which is a very powerful ministry if you can break that cycle. Also, we want to start some sustainability projects so that our families aren't just getting a little bit of help, but being able to be lifted permanently out of poverty, malnutrition, lack of education, and lack of health care, and being able to be sustainable themselves. And also, we're looking to start a safe home for women to come to that are in dangerous situations and have nowhere to go. So these are some of our passions and what we're working towards. Right now, the pandemic is very much present in Guatemala as well, and our area is based on tourism. And as you can imagine, there's not a lot of tourists in Guatemala now. And so some of our families literally have had no income for over a year and no government help and no savings, and they're just barely getting by. And so we began a feeding program for our families. We go take the food out in trucks out to the villages. The women carry it on their head to the edge of the village and pass it over to the community. And so that's what we're doing right now to help our families, and we'll keep doing that as needed. But our groups are meeting again in Guatemala, so that's a big praise. Now, why would we be going to Guatemala? There's plenty to do here, right? All in our own community, there's plenty to do. Well, the answer for that is because we feel God is leading us to ultimately. How many of you feel that God is leading you to do something, or you know what that is? If you're not sure, today would be a good day to pause and ask God, what are you leading me to do? And it may not be some big grandiose scheme or plan. It might just be something simple. He's asking you to do this afternoon that seems small and simple, but is actually going to multiply and end up being something very important that you're doing for someone else. So pause and ask God what he's leading you to do today. For us, it's to go to Guatemala. And we are going to be working as along with the founder, as executive directors of La Casa de la Paz. And our role is now to deepen and expand the ministry and also to connect with churches and individuals like you so that we can find people that can help support our work and impact the families in Guatemala. We lived there previously, as Pastor Brian mentioned, in 2013 through 2015, and then we've been back here the last 6 years. Will's been a pastor in the Methodist denomination, and we are now feeling it's time to go back and build upon the relationships that we made previously, and we'll be leaving in October, which is coming really soon. Panic mode, got a lot to do. But there are some ways that you can be involved if you would like. One way that all of us can be involved is to pray. And maybe you saw we had a table as you were coming in, and there's a basket on there with some bracelets, and we've brought those as a gift for you. So please take one if you would like. You don't have to use it as a bracelet, especially guys maybe don't want to do that. You can still take one and put it in your Bible or somewhere that you might see it. And when you see this, remember to pray for the families that we've presented to you today. You now know about their situation, so we all have a responsibility to do something with that, and something we all can do is pray. We're all able to do that. So take one of these, and remember to pray for the families that I've mentioned to you. And also, if you're interested, we've got some packets of information you can take and learn more about what our work is in Guatemala. And there's also a little card you can take with you or fill out today. If you want to receive newsletters or be involved, you can fill out your information. There's a basket for those, or you can mail it in if you want to take it with you. And also, we'd be glad to answer any questions or find out a little bit about you. So thank you for listening, and I think we have a video to share now.
In 2012, I was at a church service, and there was a woman there with a purple face and a purple arm, and I asked her what happened, and she had been beaten by her man, and she accepted this as normal. And so I responded to her with a new idea of what normal is, and that's how La Casa de la Paz started, through this one abused woman. In the first year, we grew to 15 women, 15 family. After 2 years, we were up to 40 women, and it got so big that I asked, I needed help, and we got donations from the United States to have an office and to hire 2 part-time people, which were Mercedes and Gloria. And through this, the ministry expanded. All of them have been started organically through women just simply talking to other women, and that's how we started.
Yo vivía con un hombre alcohólico y muy violento. Estrella era traductora de Salamon's Porch, entonces allí conoció a Neil, le contó sobre mi historia, sobre lo que yo estaba sufriendo. Entonces ellos fueron a buscarme para invitarme a una reunión. Así fue cuando empezó la Casa de la Paz. Yo llegué a las reuniones de la Casa de la Paz porque sufría abuso. Lo primero que aprendí en la Casa de la Paz es que no estamos solas. Yo y Gloria vamos a 8 comunidades a compartir sobre la Casa de la Paz, apoyando a las mujeres que también sufren violencia. Pues hemos aprendido mucho sobre este libro, sobre los 12 pasos. En las reuniones compartimos nuestras historias y ahí encontramos una gran paz que solo Dios nos puede dar a través de Jesucristo.
While many of us enjoy the blessings of a safe and comfortable home, in Guatemala, a high percentage of women and children suffer from domestic abuse, alcoholic husbands, as well as severe poverty and malnutrition. With very little resources available, 90% of cases go unreported and their voices go unheard. Since 2012, we have witnessed many lives be transformed by the peace, hope, and healing that Jesus Christ has made available to us. La Casa de la Paz has established discipleship groups for over 200 families around Lake Atitlan. During our times together, women are encouraged to share their stories, pray, and honestly seek Christ to find the love, wisdom, and power that is essential to live a transformed life. We exist to provide women and children who have experienced abuse a house of peace.
Wonderful to be with you, and so thankful for Pastor Brian inviting us to come and share with you this morning. I've gotten to know Brian over the past 3 or so years, and I got to go on an Emmaus walk that Pastor Brian was leading, and it was a really cool, life-changing experience for me, and I'm thankful for his leadership. And as a young pastor / minister, and someone going into the mission field, I look for people as mentors, people that I look up to in ministry, and Brian is one of those. And so I'm thankful for his ministry, and you guys are lucky to have him as a pastor. Give him a hand. Yeah. Wonderful ministry, and I'm so thankful for other people who are passionate about the ministry that they've been called to. And we are here sharing because we're passionate about Guatemala, working there and with the people there, because we believe that this ministry, La Casa de la Paz, aligns with the heartbeat of God. Throughout the scriptures, you see God calling people, his people, to care for the poor and the oppressed, to care for the marginalized, those who are hurting and broken in the world, those who can't take care of themselves. God has a passion for those people, and it's almost as if he's religiously taking care of the widow and the orphan throughout the scriptures and calling people religiously, please take care of the widow and the orphan. And we see the psalmist talking about God in this way. He says that he's a father to the fatherless, a defender of the widows. This is God whose dwelling is holy. This is God's heartbeat throughout the scriptures, calling people religiously to take care of the fatherless and the widow. And that word religious is an interesting word. I don't know if you would consider yourself a religious person. Anybody consider themselves religious this morning? Yeah, it's a good thing to be religious. It's kind of gotten a bad rap lately in the church where people will say, well, I'm not religious, I have a relationship with God. And I get why they say that, because it's so important to not just go through the motions of your faith, but to actively be engaged with God, to walk with him in faith, and to know him personally. That's so important. But to every relationship that we have, there's a religious aspect to it. I can't be in a relationship with my wife if I'm not religiously showing up over and over and over again in that relationship. You have to be religious about it. The word religious literally means to bind yourself to something. You bind yourself to something and say, I'm going to show up in this over and over and over again. And so you can be religious about many different things. You can bind yourself to God, like many of you have chosen to do this morning by coming to church. You can bind yourself to other practices as well. Hopefully all of us woke up this morning and practiced a religion of brushing our teeth. If you didn't, don't breathe on the person next to you. Brushing your teeth is an important thing to be religious about, to do it over and over and over again. If you don't, your teeth will end up rotting and falling out of your head. You can also be religious about different things. One of my religions is I show up almost every Saturday in the fall and watch Notre Dame football. I'm a very big Notre Dame fan. Hey, we got a fan. I know this is not the country to bring that up in because there's a lot of Purdue fans around here. I see you. But you can be religious about watching football, can't you? You show up every Saturday, and it becomes a religion. If you've ever gone tailgating before, you see it's a religion. So you can be religious about good things. You can be religious about bad things. Some of the people in Guatemala have made a religion out of drinking alcohol. And when they do that, they religiously drink, and then they religiously fall to sleep in the streets. And so my kids have had to step over alcoholics in the street, and this is a common problem that Amber talked about with men. And so we are wanting to help with this problem in Guatemala, to help those who religiously drink to break those patterns so that families don't religiously turn to that, but they religiously turn to Christ in their life. Now, talk about religious people. You want to talk about religious people, you look to the people of Israel. They were very religious towards God. They had all sorts of ceremonies that they would attend, all sorts of festivals that they would hold for God. They would have hand-washing ceremonies where they would wash their hands and make sure that they were religiously clean to come before God. And then they would bring their sacrifices before him. a lamb or a calf that was unblemished, the best of the best. They would bring it before God and say, "Here, God, I'm religiously bringing this before you as a sacrifice." And they did that initially to have this relationship with God. It connected them to Him. But the problem with when you do things religiously sometimes is that you do it over and over and over again, and it can become just a pattern that you fall into without even thinking about why or what you're doing. And the people of Israel fell into this pattern where they were just doing it. They were going through the motions of it. They weren't allowing God to change their heart in any way. But they were still coming to get God off their back. And God calls them out on it. He calls a prophet named Amos to call them out. And he says in Amos chapter 5, he says, I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring me choice fellowship offerings, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the music of your harps. And here's God's point. He says, but let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. See, the people were attending these festivals and they were offering their sacrifices and their prayers, but they had forgotten that God wanted to transform their hearts, to be more like His, to have a heart of justice and a heart of righteousness like God's heart beats. See, God is a God of justice, and His heart beats for the poor and the oppressed. He's righteous. His heart beats for those who are hurting and broken. And the people were going to the temple and literally walking past people on the steps of the temple who were sick and dying, who were broken and oppressed. They would walk right past these people and go into their services and sing the songs and pray the prayers while these people are dying in the streets outside. And God was like, guys, you've forgotten the whole point of this. The whole point was for your heart to beat like mine, so that your heart beats for the people of the world and those around you, that my love would flow through you to other people. So God uses Amos to call them out. He also used the prophet Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 1, you read this. God calls them out again. He says, when you come appear before me, who's asked this of you, this trampling of my courts? Stop bringing meaningless offerings. Your incense is detestable to me. New moons and Sabbaths and convocations. I cannot bear your worthless assemblies. Your new moon feast and your appointed festivals, I hate with all my being. Whoa. That's serious. They become a burden to me. I'm weary of bearing them. When you spread out your hands in prayer, I hide my eyes from you. Even when you offer many prayers, I'm not listening. Your hands are full of blood. Wash and make yourselves clean. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless and plead the case of the widow. God was calling them back to His heart, saying, take up the cause of the fatherless and the widow, the poor, the oppressed, those who are hurting and broken. Take up that cause. And then James echoes that in the New Testament when he says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. In other words, James says, if you're going to be religious about something, if you're going to do something over and over and over and over again, let it be taking care of the orphan and the widow. Let it be taking care of the poor and the oppressed. If you're going to do something religiously, take care of the hurting and the broken in the world. This is a call we see in Scripture, and that's why we feel like we're called to go to Guatemala. Now, the first time we told our parents that we were headed to Guatemala, some were excited, some were not so excited. And I remember telling my grandma specifically because she didn't have the greatest reaction. And my grandma had a way of saying things very bluntly. She told it like it was. She didn't care how I felt about it. And so I told her, hey, Grandma, we're going to Guatemala. And she says, and this is a quote, why in the heck would you want to go to that godforsaken place? although I softened that first word for you there. And I was taken aback, like, oh, Grandma, how could you? I feel so bad. I want my grandma to be excited for what we're doing. And so it took me a little bit to recover, but once I recovered, I thought, Grandma, you said exactly why we are going to Guatemala. Because people in Guatemala feel forsaken. They feel like, God, where are you at? Where are you at? I'm here suffering. My family has no food to eat. We're being abused and beaten and broken. Where are you at, God? Do you even exist? They're crying out to God. And God says, I do love you. I do care about you. I care enough about you that I'm going to send a random family from Indiana down to let you know that I love and care about you. And the thing is, God is doing this not just in Guatemala, but all over the world. People are crying out for God. Where are you at? I guarantee right down the street from here in Monticello, there's someone sitting on their couch in their living room right now saying, God, where are you at? Do you exist? Are you even real? Do you care about me? I see the people walking into Monticello United Methodist Church. I see them going to their services, but do you care about me? And God says, yes, I care about you. I care about you. And this morning, I'm going to call the people out of Monticello United Methodist Church and send one of them to you. It may be one of your family members. It may be someone that lives down the street from you, a neighbor. But God is calling you to reach out to someone that you know it may be hurting and broken today. To reach out to them. Maybe you bake a plate of cookies, or you just go and knock on their door and say, hey, I wanted to just stop by and let you know that God wanted me to tell you that he loves you, that he cares about you. He sent me to say that to you. It takes some boldness to do, but God has called us to do that, to speak out on behalf of those who are hurting and broken. And in Proverbs chapter 31, he says, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and helpless and see that they get justice. Even when they don't even know what they're crying out for. Their heart cry, the deepest cry within every human being, is for God to know and love them. And so we, as a people of God, get to fulfill that for different people, whether it's in Guatemala or in Monticello, Indiana. God is calling us all to be the deliverers of his hope and peace and joy and love. That's why we're empowered by the Holy Spirit to do those things. And so we want to sing a song for you this morning about just that, running to the Father, allowing him to transform your heart to beat like his heart, to religiously beat like God's heart. And it's called Run to the Father. And in there's a line that says, God, transform my heart, and I'm going to run to you again and again and again and again. I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. Yeah, I see it now. I'm laying it down. I know that I need you. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. You saw my my condition, had a plan from the start. Your Son for redemption, the price for my heart. And I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. My heart has been in your sights long before my first breath. Running into your arms is running to life from death. I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh.